And so I explained it. I says, well, you have a sun in the center, and then you have all the planets named after false gods circling around that sun in obeisance to that main god. And she goes, no.
Hey Chris, good to see you.
Hey, you too, Chris. How you been?
Yeah, good. I've never heard your full testimony, so if you'd like to just start where you think is the right place to start, and just explain how you've come from where you were to where you are now.
Boy, that could go pretty far back, but I can nutshell it.
Right? Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, I raised in a Christian home. Bible believing, and we went to Sunday church a lot of times. What we bounced from church to church, and then parents got really kind of taken advantage of lots of times. And so there was like years would go by where we didn't go to church. But still believed the Bible was the true word of God. But none of our beliefs were really based on the word of God. It turns out, I would find out years later, that a unfortunate majority of the beliefs we had were, based on traditions of men.
Yeah.
And to fast forward from when I was growing up to my time in the U.S. Air Force, at the tail end of my Air Force enlistment, I started really seeking God. I had gone through a divorce, and I was asking, God for direction, and that had a big impact on me. I still going to a Sunday church. I still really didn't know my Bible.
All right.
But I came to the conclusion that I had to submit to God's will.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't done that ever before.
Okay.
I had to admit and embrace that God's will was going to be far better than whatever I could come up with.
Right.
Not long after that, I met Rebecca, and Rebecca and I got married. And right away, we started being introduced to certain truths that were outside the norm. And the first example would be the issue of holidays, Christmas, Easter, Halloween.
Right.
And of course, the church we went to fully embraced those things. But someone within that church was sharing with us. And once we saw the hypocrisy in it, and the lie, it was easy. We walked away from it. And that was 25 years ago.
Right.
And, moving forward, we'd go to churches, but quickly, right, just not impressed, not in with, the showiness of it. And we wouldn't last very long in a church. A lot of times they didn't like us, And so we'd stay home and read our Bibles. And there was a lot of things we learned along the way. Fast forwarding again till about 10 years ago. So it'd be a 2010, 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Someone came to us. Now, we had a health clinic, and one of our clients was a Seventh-day Adventist. Well, in fact, that's a different story. Okay, anyway, she brought in a Walter Veith DVD on meat or dairy.
Right.
And she asked Rebecca if she was a truth seeker. And Rebecca said, yeah, I'm a truth seeker. She says, well, watch this. We watched and she brought it home. We watched the dairy video. And we're like, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the girl says, well, if you like that video, you might like this one. And it was his testimony. So we listened to his testimony. Okay, that was cool. And then it was like a little slippery slope she was leading us on to get us into, let's see, what's the big one?
Oh, Total Onslaught or something
Total
like
Onslaught, thank you.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So we watched that, and it was like a marathon watching it.
Right.
And we were like, wow, we agreed with so many of the points just from reading our Bible.
Yeah.
And we'd never been real big on the idea of rapture, and we were open to by then we'd watched a lot of X-Files, and so we like the weird stuff, you know, and
Okay.
and we're open to questioning a lot of stuff, you know.
Right.
So
the truth was out there.
The truth is out there somewhere. You just got to weed through it. And so now we're watching this, and we come to the realization after we zip through all those 20 some hours of video that we are Seventh-day Adventists. We believe this. We believe we were already kind of believing all these things. In fact, we had been introduced to the Sabbath, and I could see that was the truth, even though I wasn't practicing it.
Yeah.
And so we decided that night, it just happened to be a Friday night when we finished the series, and we said, well, we got to find a church to go to tomorrow. And we weren't interested. We had already had enough experience with the corporate church and its followers to know that that's not what we wanted.
Yeah, it's really interesting how when you find the truth, like that you've already been practicing it, or in part at least. I actually remember it too. Like when I first came from the world to actually a Godhead church, I came in and I explained to everyone that I didn't eat meat because we were having lunch, and they were showing me, no, this is all vegetarian. I was shocked. And they also said, and I started talking about chemtrails and different conspiracies that I knew were true, and then they all knew it, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, you know, you can see that God has led you there, you know, that things that you already accepted that they also accept. Anyway, I'll let you continue.
Yeah. So we typed into the Google search engine, non-conference Adventist church, and one pops up. So we go there, and the people, when we show up the next morning, the people are looking at us strange because nobody's new has come in a long time without being invited. Like, how did you find us? And it was kind of a God thing that we were able to find it through the Google search so easily. But anyway, we did a bunch of Bible studies. You know, they weren't the type to just baptize warm bodies, right?
Yeah.
They wanted to know you were in line with what they believed. So it was about a year's worth of Bible studies going through the fundamentals, and including Trinity, which that was normal for us because all churches believed that, you know, except for the JWs and the Mormons. So we joined, we got baptized again. And anyway, they got a little disillusioned with us because we didn't do Christmas. And that was kind of a sore topic for them. So they were not so nice about it. So we left. Anyway, we continued in the faith, worshiping at home. And the Godhead topic had come up. But, you know, sometimes it's the delivery, and sometimes it's the people, and it just didn't come across too well. So it was easier to reject and stay with what was normal and what was comfortable.
Okay, and so then you did come in contact with it at an earlier time.
Came in contact with it twice. The second time was through a video. He was talking about how wrong it was that he was worshiping Jesus, and that didn't sit right with. I think that was him. The things he was saying and how he was coming across didn't sit right with me, so he rejected it again. So we'll put the Godhead thing to the side, and we're coming up on 2017, and we lived in Oregon near McMinnville. which is close to the coast. And that was going to be in the path of totality for the big United States solar eclipse.
Right.
And so there was a lot of hype about that. And I started researching online, trying to figure out, well, why is the shadow seemingly going in reverse to what it should be? And trying to find answers on YouTube, and NASA specialists can't explain it properly.
Yeah, you showed me some of that stuff. Yeah, that was really interesting. Yeah.
I understand their model now, even though I don't agree with it. But regardless, I'm looking through that kind of stuff, and that triggers YouTube to send me flat Earth topics.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But it's, they sent me the ones that were really stupid.
Yeah, the ones that, the controlled sort of opposition ones.
The controlled opposition. The guys that are heavy dope smokers, no credibility whatsoever. The crazy people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, is this a thing? I was like, these poor people, they don't know the Earth is a globe. I'm gonna have to look into this and research it a little bit so I can correct them if I ever come across.
Right.
And so I started diving into it, and I had more questions than answers. And then I came across a guy named A. True Ott. And A. True Ott he's a former Mormon, became a Christian, and he's heavy into conspiracy stuff. And I've listened to him before talk about the Rockefellers, and he sounded really legit.
Okay, I haven't heard of
anyway, turns out he was promoting the flat Earth as well.
Okay.
And so now this was my first introduction to someone that I thought was legitimate that was talking flat Earth.
Yeah.
So that continued down. And so for me, as I delved into discovering the flat Earth topic, it was really more of what I could observe than I didn't really understand the Bible connection yet.
Yeah.
And I heard people talking about it, but I didn't really understand that connection yet.
Yeah, but you were sort of being convinced by a lot of the more practical and logical explanations given on it.
Sure. What can I observe? Go to the beach, and I stretch out a line. It's straight, and I don't see any variation at the horizon with the line that I've stretched, and things like that.
Yeah, because you have a background as a sort of mechanical background, so
kind of a mechanical,
yeah.
Anyway, time kind of keeps going on, and I'm researching more, and now I'm pretty much fully invested now, and now that I'm fully invested in the flat Earth, I'm starting to discover what the Bible says about it. Genesis 1, going all through the Psalms, and realizing all the prophets, I'm getting criticism now from my Adventist brother.
Yeah.
And
it's cover to cover.
Cover to cover.
Yeah. It's the whole Bible.
Right. And my Adventist brother was like, he's a NASA fanboy,
Yeah.
And and I'm like, well, look, I'm in good company. I'm in the company of all the prophets. Like, how far off could I really be?
Yeah.
So we continued down that, and just studying more and more on it. And it just seems more and more logical as we go.
Yeah.
And then we moved to New Mexico, and we're still worshiping at home. And, periodically on Sabbath, I'd type in flat Earth sermon, looking for something that's out there.
Right.
And Earthen Vessels pops up.
Ah, right.
And so I show it to Rebecca. Rebecca and I sit down. We watch some of your flat Earth sermons.
Yeah.
And then the Godhead thing came up, and I was I was like, man, not again. And I was trying to ignore it. And then Rebecca saw it, and she's like, boom. She's like super intense research,
Yeah.
she digs into it again after rejecting it 3 times.
Really? Okay.
She digs into it again and she goes, you got to look at this. And so my first video I watched was the one Laura did.
The Arius one. Yeah.
Arius. Yeah. Arius. And then,
the ship that's going through.
And then the ship that goes through.
Yeah.
And here's the defining difference. Okay. And this is what really caught me was that you weren't steering away from the deity of Christ, and you weren't steering away from the worship that's due him.
Mm-hmm.
And that was huge.
Okay.
Another thing that really stood out was the humility in the delivery. Mm-hmm. You, Bill, Tom, there was a level of humility there that I hadn't experienced in any church environment ever. Mm. And in fact, I was just really fed up with type A personalities and pastors and speakers and leaders, and just wanted to vomit every time I'd hear these guys. They're so full of themselves, Anyway, so the level of humility went a long way with me, kind of as attracted to what the message was.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying about certain speakers, that they have a talent, but it's almost the talent gets away from them in a way.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, here's the other thing. Here's the other side to that, is that every con man is a type A, hey, in your face, Mr. Bold, right? I mean, that's where the word con man comes from. It's confidence man.
Right.
That's how it's, that just turns me off, man. Yeah, if you got the truth should stand alone regardless of the delivery.
Yeah, that's it. No, that's good. And unfortunately that's rare. Externals often are a bigger player to people than the actual message. Anyway.
Yeah.
So if you first learned the cosmology, so now via cosmology you have come in contact with the Godhead for a third time or fourth time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the thing is we were really never married to any constructs, Yeah. It's like the guy that introduced us to the idea that Christmas and Easter were pagan holidays. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, we got it. Let's move on. And then when Sabbath, the Sabbath question came around, I remember asking the pastor, I'm like, well, but there was a change in the day, right? And he goes, no. He says, let me show you. He says, the first day of the week is mentioned 8 times in the New Testament. Let's look at them all. And we looked through them all. I'm like, okay, got it. Right. It was just this. It's so hard to explain the veil that lifts. And then you see clearly the truth. And it seemed so obvious before you were looking at truth with Sunday worship or the globe theory or the Trinity theory, right? Yeah. It seems so clear because it had been embedded in our minds.
Because you hadn't questioned it. It seemed clear because it hadn't been opposed by anything before.
Right.
And that's why people like yourself and pretty much everyone we're interviewing and others, they have this honesty, that intellectual and I guess moral honesty. But we know that God winks at ignorance, but when you're presented with something, it's not that you even do it out of fear for what God will do to you or what people will think. You just love it because it's the truth. You embrace it. That's the quality, that we're constantly seeing as the Gideon's test continues, with different truths.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'll let you keep going.
Oh, well, yeah. Truth is truth. I mean, whether you like it or not. And, but it still boggles my mind, having come out of all these false belief systems, it boggles my mind now when I share with family that they refuse to have that hood removed.
Yeah, I
They're
know.
holding on to it was
Yeah.
such, and defending it. And why are they so married to it? It's beyond me. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I know. I can't understand it either, but I guess it's a comfort thing more than anything. A comfort
Right.
in the world and in the life that they presently live. They think they see value in it, and they know that if the hood comes off, then things will have to change, you know.
Yeah, that and pride though too, because
Yeah.
if I have to admit I'm wrong,
Mm.
and then all my parents and my grandparents and all these other people have been wrong, and but you've got the truth. Yep. That's,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have the truth. It doesn't come from me. I just accepted the truth.
Yeah, that's it. And if you were wrong, it's just because, who hasn't been wrong? I don't understand why it's such a big deal.
Right.
Yeah, like, I mean, before I became a Christian, I believed all sorts of strange things. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, people probably thought it was just another strange thing I was doing, becoming a Christian, but turns out I'm staying a Christian. What's, I think, significant about your testimony, is the fact that it was cosmology that came first, and then the Godhead came after. Because a lot of people put a lot of, rightly, like the Godhead is, it is the most important truth in the Bible. John 3:16, is the core of the gospel. And if you don't believe that, then, you don't have a gospel.
Right.
But the cosmology people think is, non-salvational. They think it's just like, something that has no bearing on your faith, But like what I'm seeing continually is, I think with yourself and with others, it's just a really way of objectively reading the Bible. As you said, from, your testimony, you already believed a lot of things that Adventists believed before coming just by reading it, and the same method can be, if it's applied to as it is with believing the literal sonship of Jesus, is applied to cosmology,
Right.
Yeah, and it's just out of a love for the truth that it is embraced. Not any reason. People are I constantly see people trying to find a reason why they have to believe something, like, or how does this affect me, or how is this, how does this, it's going to help our, work or something. They reason that way.
A benefit.
Rather than, is it the truth?
Right.
I've never reasoned that way. That's like, I didn't become a Christian because I wanted to improve my life, or I wanted to, even because I wanted to go to heaven necessarily. I read The Great Controversy, and I was convicted that this was the truth, and it's what I'd always been looking for, and that I was so happy that I'd found it, and now I had to share it with others. That was the only reason.
Yeah.
It had been revealed to me, and I was overjoyed. And it should be the same with everything. I think. I don't think there needs to be. Doesn't have to be complicated.
Right. And truth rarely has any positive earthly consequences.
Yeah.
It results in making your world smaller and your scope of friends smaller.
Yeah.
But better. Yeah.
Of better quality.
Yeah. Much better quality. Correct.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I'm all about weeding out the fakes,
Yeah, that's it. And that's what God's doing as well through truth.
Right.
Right.
I think about in some of the discussions I've had with other Christians, other Seventh-day Adventists about the cosmology question. And I don't know, I've come across a lot of really strange arguments, justifications and I think the one I keep going back to the most, because they all like to say, well, it's conjecture. It was, the God was just speaking to them as they understood it. But when it comes to the account of King Hezekiah, the account is in two different locations. And they're not written exactly alike. There's a little bit more information. And the second one, the prophet is literally speaking for the Lord. It's a thus saith the Lord.
Yeah.
And the Lord is saying, I moved the sun backwards 10 degrees.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because in one account, the shadow moved backwards.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Well, if the shadow moved backwards, that could be the sun. It could have been the earth, even though if the earth was to move backwards, there was a whole lot of other problems with that. But when God said, I moved the sun backwards, I mean, that's it. How do you get out of that? The only way to get out of that is to deny that God spoke emphatically through the prophets. Now it's just going to be conjecture.
Yeah, you start doing that.
If you don't believe that, it's problematic.
Yeah, and when God said to Job, "Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth?"
Yeah,
only the biblical model has foundations. The other model just has this molten lava and layers of rock and stuff. Like, you can't call that a foundation.
Right, which they've never proved. They've never drilled past 8 miles. So
no, that's right.
More conjecture.
Yeah.
Scientism is a religion of its own, and scientism has drawn in all these Christians, including Seventh-day Adventists, and they think that they can apply the globe theory to Genesis 1 at the same time denouncing evolution theory.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I'm like, how do you do that? What tool, what mechanism do you use when you're reading Genesis 1 to read part of it as truth and part of it as allegory?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's really interesting, like how like what you said there. You can't separate evolution from the heliocentric model or the Big Bang from the heliocentric model. They're all one. They're all one model.
Right.
Like, it's like they design them to be a complete whole. Like has been shown in some of our sermons, that the heliocentric model, the motions depend upon the energy from the Big Bang throwing them, and then getting caught in the orbits of different things. And, they're all dependent. They're all one model. You can't separate them.
And, the firmament is key. It's a key component.
Yeah.
And that's why it's been hidden. So I was talking to my sister the other night, and I was sharing with her this little story. I walked her through it. I says, you're living on a farm and you're completely self-sustained. You have your own chickens and your cows, and you grow the feed for them. You've never left the farm, and you don't know anything but your farm. Surrounded by fields, everything is, you're self-sustained there.
Yeah.
But one day you venture out and you go walking through the fields, and you walk and you walk and you walk, and you come to a fence. And the fence is not natural. You can't see through it, and it's too tall to see over it. So you start walking along the fence, and you walk and you walk and you walk, and you realize it makes a giant circle around your farm.
Yeah.
So now I ask her, what questions popped into your head? And boom, she says, what's on the other side? Who put it there? And why is it there?
Yeah.
I'm like, perfect. Those are the perfect 3 questions. And so that's the firmament. If man knew about the firmament, if all of society knew about the firmament, they'd be asking, because it's a built structure. God built it. It shows his handiwork.
Mm-hmm.
So people would be saying, why is it there? What's on the other side? Who made it? They'd be inquiring of their creator.
Mm-hmm.
But Satan comes along and deceives them and makes them think that that doesn't exist. And it's this vast vacuum of space.
Yeah.
And so they don't ask the question because they're just a speck of dust in that vacuum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the firmaments are real. Like that, I don't know how people can't see that in the Bible.
Right.
It's really the key to the whole thing.
Totally.
Mm. Just back something you said a bit earlier. You guys run a couple of health
clinics.
Health clinics. That's right. You run a couple of health clinics.
Yeah.
Just explain some of the things you guys do in those clinics for us.
Sure. So we have two modalities that we offer, two main modalities, and one is hyperbaric oxygen in a chamber, and the other is colon hydrotherapy. Mm-hmm. So that's cleaning the colon with warm, purified water.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then we also offer sauna sessions to go with the colon hydrotherapy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were doing that before you became an Adventist, right?
Yeah. And in fact, Rebecca got really ill. She was working for Kraft Foods as an account manager, selling truckloads of mayonnaise. She got really ill with a brain injury, a brain infection. Had to quit work a few years after she recovered, and she wanted to do something, with her life besides selling macaroni and cheese. And so
this is when you guys were already married.
Yeah, we were married. We were at our 7th year of marriage, I believe, 6th or 7th year.
Okay.
So she wanted to do something. Well, one of the modalities she had been doing in her, I guess her journey to getting healthy was colon hydrotherapy. And she considered becoming a nurse, but she didn't agree with any of those constructs either. So this was something she could do right away. And she's an entrepreneurial mind, so she dived right into that.
Yeah.
And not long after she opened her first colon hydrotherapy clinic, a Seventh-day Adventist doctor or naturopath started sending clients. And so we knew there was a Seventh-day Adventist there. And then we had a massage therapist that rented a room from us doing massage therapy. And she was Seventh-day Adventist.
Right.
And then we had a receptionist that helped, and she was a Seventh-day Adventist. But let me tell you, none of these people left me with any positive impressions.
Okay.
It's
great to see that, you were already practicing those things that Ellen White talks about. We should open health clinics. You're already doing it,
Right. Well, and that was one of the things, Rebecca was reading Spirit of Prophecy one day, talking about the 8 laws of health. And she's like, I've been telling people this. It was just natural. It's innate.
Yeah.
It's there. It's I want you want to say, well, it's something unique to Seventh-day Adventists, but again, it's truth. Truth resonates.
No, like the Spirit of God is not unique to Seventh-day Adventists. And
Correct.
That's what inspires people to do these things,
Right. Majority of the natural health remedies and that approach has gone over to the New Age.
Yeah, that's right.
Because the Adventists left it when they let their hospitals start dealing drugs and aborting babies and all that horrible stuff.
Yeah. Chris, you're the one that gave us the idea for the New Jerusalem video. You're the one that sort of alerted us of the inconsistency of the dimensions and how that cannot work on a globe. Because it's like a seesaw with you did all the math for all the drop and everything. Yeah. That was a real blessing. And, I think for a lot of people, it is the mechanical side of it or some other side of the cosmology that comes first. It was even for me. Mm-hmm. I was shown that not so much the mechanical stuff, but the conspiracy, like all the different photos of Earth and how they don't line up.
So for me, it was, the mechanical, the observations.
Yeah.
And I was going through this, Rebecca, I mentioned it to Rebecca, and she was kind of neutral about it, right? One day she asked me a question and I'm like, okay, well, I had to explain it. I had to explain both sides. I had to explain the globe theory side so she could understand the biblical cosmology side. And I'm like, how the globe works, right? And she goes, no clue.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? She goes, no, I took language classes. I didn't pay attention to science.
Yeah.
And so I explained it. I says, well, you have a sun in the center, and then you have all the planets named after false gods circling around that sun in obeisance to that main god.
Yeah.
And she goes, no. I'm yeah, that's the model. And she goes, no way. No, there's no way that's true. And it was like that. She was converted.
Yeah. And, I've said this in other interviews, but another thing that I really like about cosmology, flat Earth, is the fact that it draws the demographic that I'm from, the conspiracy theorist types. That they're the ones that, and that's what it's done. That's what it's kind of done to the movement, I
think I mentioned earlier that I used to watch X-Files and weird shows like that, because I guess I just know inherently that this world is not as it's presented.
Yeah, I think everyone does, and I think that's actually why they make shows like X-Files and things, because they kind of want to satisfy your knowledge of that, but then place it in the world of fiction when it's somehow something in you knows it at the same time. Anyway.
Right. I guess I do my due diligence to sort through these things to see if they're legit.
Yeah.
Whether it's the Sabbath and the papacy controlling the earth and the cosmology question and I do my due diligence, but it's not that hard for me to accept. If you're a Christian and you accept the fact that there's a creator being that created everything, I mean, you're already accepting something out of the norm, out of the norm of at least modern society.
Yeah, modern society,
Yeah,
that's right. Which is quite a bizarre thing when you really think about it. Yeah, for me, the first thing I did when I learned about cosmology, I thought like Rome has to be behind this. When you realize the timing of it, which is the dawn of the Reformation, and who it was that they actually came out with it, a Catholic cleric, Copernicus, and how the reformers all attacked him, that's enough. Like, I don't know how people can't see it, it's just clearly an attack on the Bible.
Yeah, and then you look at their modern statements, in regards to aliens, right?
Yeah.
The Catholic Church is like, well, if aliens come to Earth, we'll baptize them into the church.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they've got their Lucifer telescope in Arizona. They're priming the way so they can be the first ones to see the UFOs flying through space towards Earth, and they're going to be part of that whole UFO alien invasion.
Yeah.
And you can't have that if everybody believes in a firmament that surrounded by water.
Then you're going to be really crazy when you don't even believe the things that you're seeing with your own eyes in the sky that are being
correct,
either projected up there or we're going, what, you believe the words of a book that's 2,000 years old over what you can see with your own eyes? How crazy are you?
Right. That's right. Cool.
It's been a great interview. I'd just like to encourage anyone that would like to get in touch with Chris can reach out to us, and we'll put you in contact with him all throughout the world.
Yeah, for sure.
Because, you know, there's so few of us that are in this niche market of beliefs, the tinfoil hat wearing,
that's my cue.
Flat earthers. And not only that, but, you know, the Godhead truth and so many things. It's just been becoming so narrow. So we really want to see those who love the truth, all of the truth coming together. And
that's right.
It's been great having you with us, Chris.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.